Let's bring in Kayleigh McEnany. She is the White House press secretary, as you know, and she joins us this morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Ainsley.
Good morning. What's your response to the Democrats when it comes to Attorney General Bill Barr, that he's just there to run interference for the president?
That's not at all the case. Attorney General Barr has done an incredible job, and the real problem that Democrats have with Attorney General Barr is that he's actually taking Russiagate seriously, this bogus sham effort that was launched against President Trump when he was just a candidate and went into his administration. The fact that Bill Barr is looking into why the Obama administration spied on the Trump campaign is their real problem. That he is in seek of the truth, and that is their problem with Attorney General Barr.
You know, Kayleigh, one of the things the president has been saying for a long time is that the Obama administration spied on him. At one point, he tweeted out wiretap, things like that. But nonetheless, the more we realize what was going on behind the scenes, and now this week we're learning the name of a Brookings Institute analyst by the name of Igor Danchenko. It sounds like he's the one who actually provided a lot of the subsource material for the Steele dossier. This morning, over on Fox Business, Maria Bartiromo asked Obama counselor Valerie Jarrett about how the Obama administration used or had a connection to the dossier, and this is their conversation. Watch this.
Did President Obama direct any of this?
That's not how it works. That's not how our investigations work. That we leave that to the intelligence community to bring forward information, and the dossier, I would imagine, would be one piece of a much bigger puzzle. And so if you're saying, is it important to make sure that there isn't influence? And actually, the Mueller report didn't conclude that there wasn't any wrongdoing. In fact, he was explicit in saying quite the opposite. And so I don't think we should read in where there hasn't been actually any conclusions to that effect yet. You're making statements that actually haven't been
just
proven.
To be clear.
Yeah, I know the president has been emphatic. They spied on him. Does that change anything, what you just said?
No, it doesn't at all. This is another case of the Obama administration officials trying to cover up what they did to this president. The fact is, this president was exonerated. He did nothing wrong. And the people who have questions to answer are people like Susan Rice, who said on PBS, I know nothing about Trump administration officials getting caught up in foreign surveillance, when in fact, she herself wrote an email on her way out the door talking about an Oval Office meeting with President Obama and Vice President Biden, where they talked about Michael Flynn and the Logan Act and the fact that he was caught up in surveillance. There is a documented history of lies from this administration as they try to cover up for their misdeeds against President Trump.
Right now, Peter Strzok, who is all over this, all over the investigation, his notes are out there, and he's personally had transgressions. He's not going into the wilderness. In fact, it is just coming out now. He is writing a book. It's called Compromise, Counterintelligence and the Threat of Donald Trump. That's coming out on September 8th. What do you think Peter Strzok has?
Peter Strzok shouldn't be writing a book. He should be answering questions. Listen to this damning timeline. On August 15th of 2016, Peter Strzok wrote about an insurance policy because we can't take a risk that President Trump gets elected. That's August 15th. August 17th of 2016, candidate Trump has his very first intel briefing that we learned last week from a declassified document was used to go after the president, not to brief him on what's going on, but was used to target Flynn and target Trump. Guess who signed off on those notes? Peter Strzok. So 48 hours after he sends the insurance text, he's signing off on notes filed against the president in Crossfire Hurricane, a bogus investigation based on a dossier full of lies funded by the DNC. You can't make this stuff up. He should be answering questions.
He'll probably end up with a network contract like Peter McCabe.
Probably.
Or Andy McCabe.
So we have all seen that video, Kayleigh, of what's happening in Portland and other cities around the country. But look at some of this. I mean, we're seeing organized protests. Police are finding bags of Molotov cocktails and fireworks and other incendiary devices that they're using against the police officers. But then when Jerry Nadler was asked by a journalist, what do you think about this? Is Antifa a real threat, or is Antifa responsible for this? This is what he said.
There's violence across the whole country. Do you disavow the violence from Antifa that's happening in Portland right now? There's riots.
That's a myth that's being spread only in Washington, D.C.
About Antifa in Portland?
Yes.
Sir, there's videos everywhere online. There's fires and riots. They're throwing fireworks at federal officers. DHS is there. Look online. It gets crazy, Mr. Nadler.
Kayleigh?
It's appalling. Ask the 3 officers in Portland who were blinded by lasers literally will very likely never regain their sight because of Antifa. Ask them if it's a myth. Ask the federal officer who stuck his hand through boards with nails left out by protesters if it's a myth. Ask the officers who were in the courthouse as Antifa tried to burn it down. This is not a myth, and it's disrespectful to our federal law enforcement officers who are out there trying to protect a courthouse and protect the American people and protect peaceful protesters from the Antifa rioters.
All right. Meanwhile, everybody's trying to protect themselves from the coronavirus. I know yesterday the president was talking about how 2 different vaccines are starting phase 3 trials this week, and that's very promising. You know, by the grace of God, we will have a vaccine by the end of this year. That would be fantastic. But there was some troubling news that the National Security Advisor, Robert O'Brien, tested positive for coronavirus. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I spoke with Dr. Connolly this morning, the president's doctor, and he said to me the president was never put at risk, nor was the vice president. Ambassador O'Brien's at home working. He's actually feeling pretty good, very mild symptoms. So we're encouraged by that. But on that note about the vaccine, I do want to underscore this, that it took Ebola to develop an Ebola vaccine. It took 13 months to get to phase 3 clinical trial, 4 years to get a final completed result. We anticipate having something by the fall, and this is the fastest time for any novel pathogen to get to phase 3 clinical trial. And to produce the vaccines on top of that, that's where President Trump comes in as a businessman, manufacturing these vaccines far before they even have reached completion.
But Kayleigh, Joe Biden says he's warning the president, you must allow the vaccine development process to play out free of political pressure and follow the 3 principles of integrity. Your thoughts on the warning from the former vice president?
No, in fact, you had Dr. Anthony Fauci out on the air yesterday touting this historic timeline and noting that this has been done in complete sync with the science, and we've been abiding by the standards for clinical trials. So perhaps you should go talk to Dr. Fauci.
Thank you, Kayleigh, for joining us.
Thank you.
You're welcome.